So a lot of people lose money on their taxes because they get caught up with the IRS. They don't lose money because they wrote off too much stuff. They wrote off the wrong stuff. And so today I want to talk about that. Somebody had sent me a clip of someone talking about something that they're writing off, and it's a little suspect in my opinion, but I wanted to talk about it. Listen, if you don't know who I am, my name is Kamari Ellis. I'm an enrolled agent. I've been in the business for over 35 years, and we like to talk about taxes. Why? Because taxes are one of the most expensive things that you will ever occur. And what I like to say is taxes are the enemy to wealth. And so if you're really serious about getting wealthy, you have to think about your tax situation and how it applies to your life and your family and your business and your job, like all of these things. Sadly, there's nothing you can do in this life when it comes to when it comes to money, that you can't get around taxes. It's just not going to happen. So today, I wanted to talk about someone who was talking about spending about $7,000 on a business suit. And they said you could write it off. And so, again, somebody sent me this. And I said, all right, well, let's talk about this. Now, fair warning, I actually like this person. I think some of their stuff is pretty cool. But it always gives me pause when all these quote unquote famous social media people always want to get online and be accountants or be tax folks. And I don't understand that. But listen, if you're just tuning in, make sure you come in, introduce yourself, let me know where you're hailing from, and let me know if you have any tax questions, because today is Tax Tuesday. Running a little bit late because I had some stuff to do. I was working, y'all, but I promised I would do a live every Tuesday, rain, sleet, hail, or snow. So I'm here. But without further delay, let's get into this. I'm not going to be here too long, y'all. All right, so that gentleman's name is Myron Golden. And Myron Golden is like the salesman. He has trained a lot of people on sales strategies and tactics. Many of your favorite social media person has gone to Myron for training. All right. And so Myron is talking about his suit. It's a nice suit. By the way, I'm jealous of his beard. Very nice beard. Very nice beard. So let's play this for y'all.
This suit cost me $7,000, and I wrote the whole thing off of my taxes. If you have a brand and you have a logo, and you put your logo and your brand on your clothing, you can write off all of those pieces. I am Myron Golden, your millionaire mentor, and these are secrets to how you can save money on taxes. This suit.
All right. So on the surface, a lot of the things that he said is indeed correct. However, it's a little misleading in my opinion. I don't know if he did that intentionally or they just threw the camera on him and just said, let's talk about this. And he said, all right, I'll talk about my suit and how I wrote off my suit. So, okay. So if you've been rocking with me for a while, you'll hear me talk about a thing called ordinary and necessary. And so the IRS, anytime we're talking about a business deduction, they are going to gauge it through the lens of ordinary and necessary. All right. Is it ordinary for your industry? Is it necessary for your business? All right. So that's one of the things you got to think about anytime you're thinking about tax deductions, right? And so I went and did a little research, love to do research, and I looked up some tax court cases, because what happens a lot of times when people file taxes and the IRS doesn't like it, sometimes they contest it. And then it will wind up in what's called tax court, where the tax court will ultimately make the decision to say, this works, it doesn't work. Is it legal? Is it not legal? And so I looked up some tax cases on the idea of writing off business suits and if it is at all feasible. So I definitely want to talk about that real quick. And many times people think these things are really hard. They're not. It's not rocket science, folks. It's really not. Some of the stuff is literally on Wikipedia. You just got to know where to look for. Or many of these things are a Google search away. If you just Google business suit write-off in Google, it'll show you a lot of things, y'all. It will show you a lot of things. All right. So if you're enjoying this and you know anybody who is interested in learning about business taxes and things like that, do me a favor, share this out with them. All right. Share this out with them. I'm broadcasting on a couple of my channels, my Tax Tuesday live channel, also on my Financial Rebel channel as well. So do me a favor, make sure you subscribe to those channels and share them, and like this as well. The algorithm really dictates who gets to see what. So you got to let them know that, hey, you like this content, it's helpful, it's valuable, I get something out of it. All right. But I want to go to a tax court case called Persner versus Commissioner. And the commissioner in this is the IRS commissioner. So anytime there is a lawsuit going to tax court, it is going to be the name of the person and versus the commissioner. All right, but I'm going to pull this up on the screen, and we're going to go over Myron's thing in a minute. We're going to go back over it in a minute. So hold on one second. Pull this up. I realize I can't load these up all at the same time because the system gets a little janky. All right. Persner versus Commissioner. All right. So this is in 1980. And so somebody might say, wow, that's kind of old. Well, you could say it's old, but what happens with court cases is there's a thing called some I'm having a brain fart, y'all. A precedent, right? So oftentimes when something happens in court, it then creates a precedent, meaning this is the standard. You have to follow the standard because the experts have ruled that this is the letter of the law and you want to follow the letter of the law. All right. So this case, again, Persner versus Commissioner says a couple of things. So what they were talking about, it dealt with the issue of whether clothes, by the way, I pulled the real case too, y'all, whether clothes purchased solely for use of work could be treated as a business expense deduction on a person's tax return. All right. Now, I want you to read this right here. Held, an objective, reasonable test is used to determine whether clothes worn at work were adaptable to general usage and therefore not deductible. So the thing with a suit, right? The thing with the suit is you have to say this suit can be used for personal use in order to write it off on your taxes. Again, it can't be used for personal use. And that's why he brought up the logo. But the logo is on the inside of his jacket, not the outside. It's not being broadcast. It's not being advertised. It's on the inside of the suit. And so I would surmise that someone at the IRS might say, this is for personal use. This isn't really for business use. Also, they will also say that, is this really a luxury item? Because sometimes the IRS will say, this isn't ordinary nor necessary. You could have got a regular black suit with white checks or white lines for less than $7,000. So you're really trying to be egregious with these monies and ultimately not pay any tax on that money, right? So again, is it ordinary and necessary? Can it be used for personal use? Objectively, right? Could you use this to go to a wedding? Could you use this to go to a job interview? Could you use this to go see a client, right? Because that's part of business too, right? Some of those things. But if it fits the bill on all of those boxes and not some of them, that's when the problem comes in. And here's a little trick. The IRS doesn't automatically audit you. Now, I will say this. The IRS also watches social media. The IRS also uses AI tools. So putting some of these things out could definitely raise a red flag. But if you like these kind of suits and you want to advertise that you spend $7,000 on them, who am I to challenge that or question it, right? However, the IRS might. Now, again, would an IRS agent say, hey, this isn't an ordinary nor necessary expense? Can this suit be used in personal use? Is it clearly for a business? Well, if the logo was on the inside, how can you really distinguish? How can you really distinguish if it's personal or if it's business? If you were, let's say you're walking on the show floor and I don't know, big Best Buy, any store, any retail store, and do you look like somebody that's working there or do you look like a customer? I would say you look like a customer in my opinion, but some people might not feel that way. So here's the thing again. People file taxes, right? They put all kinds of stuff, all kind of manure in their taxes. And a lot of times people don't get caught. Why do you think the government or the party that's in charge of the government right now doesn't want the IRS to have good manpower? And by the way, we want to talk about that too, because now they are cutting manpower, but the IRS is also starting to use AI. So they don't need the same level of bodies that they had before, even though they still need them for certain things like answering the phone and things like that. They are starting to catch up with technology and implement the technology with AI and automation and things like that. Again, however, if someone looked at this and said, I don't know if this really, really, really is a business expense. Because again, it's a nice suit, nice shoes. Mr. Golden has a Rolls Royce or a Bentley, one of them. I can't tell the difference because I ain't got that kind of money to tell the difference, right? To be honest with you. All right. So, but again, when you start getting into the realm of saying what is a legitimate tax deduction, again, you might slip through the cracks. What happens if your file gets pulled? Will you be able to defend against it? They have a term called substantiation. Basically, do you have your receipts? Literally, do you have your receipts? Can you prove that you brought this for business? Now you got it monogrammed and logoed and so on the inside, but how does this really, really work for your business? How is this really an ordinary and necessary thing for your business? So again, you gotta think about that, y'all. You gotta think about that. Now let's go back and let's look at this again. And I will, matter of fact, hold on. I want to go through this real quick. Also, again, share this here. There we go. That's not big enough. It's not big enough. All right, there we go. There we go. All right. So again, I looked up this case. Now here's the facts. The president, Sandra Peevesner, was a manager of the Yves Saint Laurent store or boutique in Dallas, Texas. She was required by her employer to wear YSL or Yves Saint Laurent clothing at work and at a work-related fashion show and luncheons. She spent $1,381.91 on YSL clothing at a discount to meet these requirements, and subsequently deducted the amount from her 1975 tax returns. Remember, I said this was from 1980. So this started from 1975 and 1980. So it's 5 years. All right. Tax ruling. In this tax court case, the commissioner argued that the clothing was suitable for general or personal wear and should therefore not be deductible. All right. Peevesner, I keep saying the name wrong. I'm not doing that on purpose, y'all. Peevesner argued that the commissioner stipulated that she was never worn, that she has never worn the clothing outside of work and considers clothing too expensive for her simple everyday lifestyle. The tax court ruled the test was subjective to the taxpayer and allowed the deduction on the grounds of wearing that, right? But you see, they challenged this. And so if this is this really worth the challenge? So you got to be really careful, right? So again, you have to ask yourself, a $7,000 suit, is it truly right? A business expense. Now, here's the other thing in this case as well, just real quick. One thing in this case is one was for a business expense, the other was for an employee deduction expense. That's actually gone now, right? So that's gone now. So again, when you're looking at this from a business perspective, would the IRS challenge this? Is it really worth it? So you have to ask yourself, I don't know. I don't know. But how was this clearly to show this case or this suit is really, really, really worth it? When I say worth it, the headache of dealing with the IRS and trying to fight for your deduction for a $7,000 suit. But let's go back over this again because I want y'all to peep it. I want y'all to peep it. So let me pull this up real quick. Pull it up one more time. I'm gonna go through it, and then we is going to be done.
Cost me $7,000, and I wrote the whole thing off for my taxes. If you have a brand and you have a logo, and you put your logo and your brand on your clothing, you can write off all of those pieces. I am Myron Golden, your millionaire mentor, and these are secrets to how you can save money on taxes.
And so, what I will say though, it would be a clear-cut case if he had that logo on the front, on the inside. I think he would have a better case to write this off and be able to challenge it if the IRS wanted to fight you on it, and ultimately go to tax court if the logo was on the outside of his jacket, right? Because you could say, you're clearly advertising the business, you're clearly working, it's not personal, there is no blurry line, it's clearly a work suit. But I wouldn't take that position if I were him. But again, the likelihood of this happening is probably slim to none. But just in case, because you never know what's going to come down the pike. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not in the guessing game. You really just don't know. You really don't know until you do know. And it becomes really, really, really frustrating for a lot of people when they're going through audits. I'm going through an audit right now for a client. I didn't do the taxes. They had a really, really bad tax person. A friend of mine took over, cleaned them up, but they didn't want to deal with the audit. They said, come on, can you get involved? Can you help? And my client does not want to talk to the revenue agent at all. Kind of petrified. They don't want to deal with it. It gives them stress. It gives them anxiety. So they would rather just get rid of them and be done with it and just move on. But this case I'm dealing with is kind of interesting. I'll tell you more about it one day. Once we're all finished up and we're wrapped up. But again, what do y'all think? Would you buy a $7,000 suit for your business? Two, do you like the suit? I actually like the suit. But is this something you would buy? And is this something you would take a chance on when it comes to filing your taxes? Drop that in the comments and let me know what you think. All right. So again, if you have any tax questions, feel free to send them to me. Okay. You could always email me your tax questions at taxtuesdaylive@gmail.com. Again, taxtuesdaylive@gmail.com. I will be here every Thursday, and we are going to talk about taxes, the good, the bad, the evil. All right. Well, I shouldn't say evil, because taxes technically aren't evil, even though I will say sometimes they get a little out of hand. They definitely get a little out of hand. All right. So until the next time. Oh, wait a minute. Jarrell said, what up, bro? Yeah, I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to be consistent in the village and on this Tax Tuesday Live as well. And so again, if you have any questions, feel free. Send me an email, Tax Tuesday Live. And if you want to join my community, all about taxes, if you're really serious about it, and I would say the people who get the most benefit from me are entrepreneurs, small business owners, and real estate professionals. So If you want to join a community that's all about tax, go on over to taxtuesdaylive.com. Go on over to taxtuesdaylive.com. All right, y'all. Until the next time, we will be talking tax. Y'all have a great week. Have a great holiday. I'll see you later.